Happy Halloween to all my disc golf fiends. So glad to have you tuning in again to the Zen Disc Golf podcast for episode number 16. On this episode, Tim and I got a chance to sit down and talk about getting ready for the upcoming winter months and give you some tips to keep your skills up, keep you from losing discs in the snow, and a few indoor practice ideas for when things are just too cold to face outdoors. But before we do that, I want to show some love to our friends and family who help keep this show going and growing. AppalachianDiscGolf.com. You've heard me talk about them on prior episodes, but now they're helping us on Instagram and Twitter give away more discs than ever before. So make sure that you follow both AppalachianDiscGolf.com on Twitter and Instagram, as well as Zen Disc Golf, and make sure you can get in and on some of these giveaways. And while you're at it, check out the website, AppalachianDiscGolf.com. I also need to give a shout out to Audible. Look, I know a lot of podcasts talk about Audible, and yes, they help me keep this show running, but I promise you that I only talk about companies that I use and believe in, and I am an avid reader, digesting several books a week. And since Bryce was born, I haven't really been able to read as much of the written word as I used to, but I've been using Audible as an alternative to wet the sponge of my brain, as it were. And this is how Audible works. For around $15 a month, it gives you access to over 180,000 books, 30% or more off the regular price. Plus, each month, they give you a free audiobook. Use your free monthly book to get a more expensive title, and then enjoy a bottom-priced audiobooks for the rest of the month. That's what I do. Let me tell you, I am loving Audible. This month, I've been on a Halloween binge, digesting Dracula, The Shining, and Sleepy Hollow. But since you're a listener of the Zen Disc Golf podcast, I have a deal for you. You can get my book, the book that started the blog, the book that started the podcast, the book that started everything for me, for free. Plus a free month of Audible. Just head to audibletrial.com/Zen Disc Golf. Sign up and search for Zen and the Art of Disc Golf. Download that one first and get it for free. That's it, free. You may already have the paperback. You may already have the Kindle, but once again, trust me, the audiobook is amazing. Matt Hayes did an incredible job of bringing the book to life, and it's excellent addition to your collection for your listening pleasure to and from the course. Last but not least, I want to give a shout out to my final two Super Deluxe box supporters, Dean Schaub from the Netherlands and Chris Siepert of Go Throw Disc. Thank you so much for all the love, guys. And now it's time for your moment of Zen. Zen does not confuse spirituality with thinking about God while peeling potatoes. Zen spirituality is to just peel the potatoes. Alan Watts. Welcome to episode number 16. Disc golf friends, and welcome to episode 16 of the Zen Disc Golf podcast. I am your host, Patrick McCormick, aka Zen Disc Golf, and the author of the controversial Oprah's book club title, Zen and the Art of Disc Golf. And I am joined here by Tim Steward, aka Mind Body Disc, who writes the Mind Body Disc blog and is known in India as Paramahansa Stewardananda.
What's going on, Pat? How you doing today?
Hey, man, I'm doing great. How are you?
Pretty good. I like my new title. I'm going to put that on a business card.
Yeah, Paramahansa Stewardananda. And I was going to add G to the end, but I was afraid I was already going to stumble through it. Paramahansa Stewardananda G.
Just spell that phonetically?
Yeah, well, yeah. Unfortunately, Zach couldn't be with us today. He's experiencing some of the leftover remnants of Patricia up there in New York, and so he's kind of battening down the hatches. And so I did get a chance to talk to him before the podcast. Everybody's doing okay, but we did wish him the best and safety for him. Also, Chris Bowden couldn't be with us today, but he promises that he's going to continue to join us on further episodes. is. So what's going on in Tim world?
I'm feeling a little lonely that we're sans hamster. I get some big shoes to fill. I've got to throw in some snarky comments and some subtle humor to see if we can fill in for the ticklish hamster not being here. But outside of that, I'm doing really, really well. It's fall in Chicago, and it's rainy and gloomy, which is the norm for Illinois weather usually. So not much sunshine right now, not much disc golf. But I think today's topic of the podcast will address some of that. But other than that, I'm doing pretty well. How are you doing?
Absolutely, I'm doing pretty good. Went back to work, and first day, first call, back at the fire department, pulled a muscle in my back, and I've been kind of working through that for the past 3 weeks. And I know that you are experienced with back problems, and you've given me some advice in the past as well as today. And I thought about eventually doing a whole episode related to disc golf related injuries, or if you have injuries, overcoming them on the disc golf course. And I think that would be great. I had at one point a chiropractor who wanted to be on the show, who is very familiar with disc golf, and God, I'm so sorry that I lost his contact information and have not contacted him back. So I believe he was going by Dr. Disc Golf. If you're listening, email me back. We're still interested in having you on the show. Unfortunately, I've just lost your contact. As far as the snarky comments, please do. I miss my buddy Zach. It's one thing that he had to move away, and basically the only time I get to talk to him is for the podcast. But this is the first episode that he has not been on.
I know,
I can recall.
It's a milestone in Zendiscgolf history.
But a bad one. I don't like that.
I know.
So I will definitely, I don't care what it takes, we've got to have him back for the next episode, because it's not going to feel awkward. Tim, this is like what? Do you have 6th episode?
Something like that, yeah.
You've been on quite a few, and I was going back and listening, and I was like, man, he's. it just seems like yesterday that you joined us, but you've been on quite a few episodes, and I really appreciate you on here and appreciate your knowledge and spreading it. And you're definitely going to do that today, because today's topic is winter disc golf, cold weather disc golf, and as we gear up for these winter months, how to keep our skills up on the course. I love fall. Every time fall or autumn comes along, I forget how much I love this time of year. It's beautiful outside. The leaves are turning. I've actually been able to get on the golf course more than over the summer, because of we finally landed daycare, and Chris has been home. She's let me off the daddy daycare for a few times, and I've brought Bryce out on the course twice, which is pretty cool. When we're out on the course, I face him at me and force him to watch me throw. But we're having a blast, and I mean, it's so much fun. As winter comes, we're gonna have to really bundle the little one up. But let's get started talking about some cold weather disc golf. Tim, you're up in Chicago, and you experience some cold weather.
It gets slightly cold here, just a little bit. I have a picture on that I posted on my Instagram last year. I went out to catch a sunrise, and it was, I want to say 10 or 12 below actual temperature, and I ended up taking I think the only selfie I've ever taken, and it was because my eyelashes were frozen together with ice.
Awesome.
So that's on Instagram someplace.
That's still on your Instagram. Okay, I'm going to link that up in the notes so everybody can just see how cold it gets in Chicago. In Virginia Beach, we have a saying: if you don't like the weather, wait 10 minutes, because it's going to change. It goes hot, cold, hot, freezing, hot, cold. So yesterday, I think it got in the low 40s. Today, almost 70. Seriously. Oh, wow. And it wreaks havoc with our illness. As you can hear, I'm probably sound a little bit hoarse, been coughing, had a little frog in my throat today, but I'm doing all right other than that, and the back issue and this and that.
You're falling apart, man.
Well, that's what happens when you get old and live in Virginia Beach in this weather, I guess. I don't know. But so it gets maybe we might have one -5 a year or something like that, but usually it stays around in, I'd say, the 20s.
Okay.
But
how much snow do you get?
man, it really depends. We will get maybe 6 or so snow days a year that are like, really cancel school and everything.
Okay.
And by that, it just has to be 2 or 3 inches, I think. What's the snow like in Chicago?
The last couple of years, it snowed. And the ground had snow and ice on it for the next probably 3 months solid. So it never melts off. It just kind of accumulates in these ugly brown, nasty layers of ice and snow. And when we get snow days, that's 18 inches, 20 inches. I mean, it's a big deal. I know that my dog, when I had her, she would go out, and she was a pretty big dog, Australian cattle dog, about 70 pounds, and she would go out and she would love to jump in the snow because she'd jump into the snow and it'd be over her head.
Right, that's insane.
So, yeah, it can get a little rough around here, but Chicago's used to it, so we just kind of go about business as usual.
So let me ask you: do you tape a ribbon to your dog so that you can find him?
Yes, absolutely.
We'll talk about that a little bit later. Some of the tricks for colder weather and winter and snow disc golf. But since you're really from that really cold area and you're dealing with all that snow, what are some of the things that you do, Tim, to prepare and kind of keep your skills up in the snow and the cold weather?
There's a few things that I'll do, and for me, when it's warm out, because we get such, honestly, it's not to sound like I'm complaining, but we don't get a ton of great weather here in Chicago. Even in the summertime, it rains quite a bit. So when you can play, I usually try and get out and play. So that means that I don't do a lot of other stuff. So in the wintertime, I typically take that time to kind of slow down and do the things that I can't do in the summer, or choose not to do in the summer. And one of those is hit the gym. I try and stay in good shape, and I work out at home during the summer, but it's time for me to get back in the gym, get under some heavier weights, do some squats and deadlifts and some core work and some things like that, and really strengthen my body up, and also allow me to, if anybody keeps up with the blog, allow my injuries to heal, to really rehab and work those out. Like you've got with the back, a big part of healing from that is strengthening it.
Right. And here's the key to one of the reasons I injured my back. I was off the job for 12 weeks with the baby and not doing the same things over and over. And my body wasn't used to going back, just jumping back to work. And I was lifting up a patient, and the body just wasn't ready for it, I guess. And so that's a big key, like you said, getting that gym time in, making yourself more agile and less injury prone. That if you don't do anything throughout the winter and then you go back out in the, as soon as summer hits, as soon as that warmer weather hits, you are more prone to injury.
Oh, for sure. And if you spend the whole summer playing disc golf is a significantly one-sided physical activity. So you tend to get really bad muscle imbalances, and that can manifest in knee problems and shoulder problems and elbow problems and back problems. And the wintertime's a good time to get back in the gym and really even all that back out a little bit as much as you can.
Sure.
Because you really, unless you're throwing, unless you're making an effort to either throw with both hands in the summer or like I like to go play ball golf, which uses the exact opposite motion of disc golf.
Okay.
Unless you're making an effort to do that kind of stuff, you definitely got some imbalances to work out. So that also goes towards that injury prevention and things like that. So it's important to do.
Yeah, exactly. So other than the gym time, how do you stay warm and nimble out there in that negative 50-degree weather?
Well, I gotta be honest. There are some people, and I gotta give it up to the folks in Minnesota, because the pictures that I see, even from the UP in Michigan, is it the UP, and then Minnesota, you guys are monsters out there. Because I gotta tell you, I see some pictures of these guys. They go out and play, and it doesn't matter. I mean, I see them playing in snowshoes.
Yeah.
I've got a picture I'm going to post on my blog here of somebody that sent me. They got an ace in snowshoes, and they're sitting on the basket. The snow's up to the bottom of the basket.
I was going to say, I see a lot of photos like that, and I'll use them for my moment of zen, where the snow is up to the bottom of the basket, and you look at it and you go, they're just out there taking photos. No, they're out there playing. Yeah,
and that's also the same thing from the folks in Sweden and Finland too. Is they get they get almost no good weather a year, and it's dark and cold most of the year for them. And they're monsters. They go out and they play all the time. So I got to say that I am not up to that par. If it's too bad, I honestly stay inside, and I have a few things that I do inside. But when I do go out when it's cold, there's a couple of things. You want to. When life gives you lemons, you try and make lemonade. So I try and look at the things of what can you do in the winter that you can't do in the summer. And a big thing for me is working on my standstill throw, because you've got icy, snowy tee pads, and you've got snow so you can't take a run up.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that standstill throw, it's critical to a good disc golf game. And they're even talking in the PDGA. I don't know if you heard about this, where they're talking about the stand and deliver rule.
No, I haven't. Wouldn't inform me.
It's in response to all the talk about foot faults, and does a foot fault really matter, and is it realistic to have somebody try and hit that mark when they're doing a full run up? And one of the possible rules that's floating around is that, just like in real golf, where you're allowed to tee up the ball on the tee, but everywhere else you got to play it where it lies. Our version of teeing it up is taking a run up. Mm-hmm. And so their thought is, anything other than your drive, you would have to actually standstill throw from your mini.
Okay.
And it's called the stand and deliver rule, and it's been talked about for a couple of years. I don't know if it'll go forward or not, but
sure.
If that rule ever takes effect, there's going to be a lot of people that are behind the eight ball, because they haven't ever worked on a standstill throw.
And I'd be interested to see what everybody thinks about that rule. So tweet to Tim and I, and we'd be interested in having some open conversations about that update.
For sure, yeah, definitely. Let us know what you think on that one, because it's definitely a controversial rule. But the neat thing about the standstill throw, whether it's a rule or not, it's a critical disc golf skill.
Absolutely.
A lot of times in the woods or in long grass, you can't take a run up anyway, and the winter's a great time to practice that. So,
yeah, any time I'm standing on a tee pad and I'm looking and I'm seeing a lot of trees and I'm knowing it's a finesse drive, I do a standstill throw anyway. Mm-hmm. And I look at other people do it, and I'm like, are you insane? Doing their run ups, and I'm like, to me it allows for a huger margin of error. But
you got to carry it around the camera and get some good YouTube videos of them falling on the front of the tee pad. That's
right.
All. People eat it pretty hard.
Right. So how are you staying warm out there?
There's a couple things. Number one, feet get cold first. Waterproof shoes and hand warmers in the shoes. They even make ones that are the size of insoles.
Okay.
That you can put in your shoes. I can't recommend that enough. So that's the first thing. I never leave the house without hand warmers in the shoes, and then hand warmers in the pockets. You can buy them by the case on Amazon for not very much, and it's a great purchase that you're super happy to have. I don't know how those things work, but man, it's like magic little hot pockets in your hands. So,
hot pocket.
There you go. Get the pepperoni flavored ones. They're pretty good. The next thing is it was just Back to the Future Day, and one of my favorite scenes I remember from Back to the Future, where he's wearing that vest into the thing, and they asked him if he just fallen off a boat and was in the Navy.
Yeah.
So I had a vest, and I never wore it because I always thought it looked kind of dorky, to be honest. And a couple years ago, somebody said, geez, in the wintertime, a vest is the perfect thing to wear in the winter. You layer up with some sweatshirts, maybe a windbreaker to keep the wind out, and then you put I've got a down vest and a fleece vest, and I'll tell you can throw just fine with a vest on, and it keeps your body warm.
Okay.
And it's way better than a big, heavy, bulky coat.
Yeah, true. Because when you're trying to pull that disc across your chest, I've had that problem in the past. It gets hung up, especially if you're just going from summer to winter and you're not used to it yet.
For sure.
Yeah. So definitely. Anything else? Any other tips for?
The other thing for me is, I'm a big fan of this thing called a hydro flask. I've written a review of it on my website. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. And I wrote it in the summertime because it keeps cold drinks ice cold for like 24 hours. It also keeps hot stuff super hot for quite a while. So when I go out, I do a lot of photography, and I'll go out and I'll get someplace, before the sun comes up. I'll hike out to where I know I'm going to get a good vantage point of the sunrise, and I'll sit there for an hour and a half waiting for the perfect moment to take a picture. And when you're not running around playing, there's nothing like a hot beverage to keep you warm. So something like that'll, a good thermos that'll keep your beverage warm for the whole round. I can't recommend the Hydro Flask enough, but something like that, some hot chocolate or other. We'll imagine what the ticklish hamster would carry. Some hot adult beverages, possibly.
Definitely.
Something like
a
that.
Wagon.
Yeah, I think he might carry some whiskey with him out there in the wintertime to keep him a little bit warm. But
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that. And then just your normal warm weather stuff. If you do layers, it's a whole lot better than one big bulky thing. So
Right. Years ago, my wife got me these gloves. They're like the skeleton gloves. I love them. They have no finger, so I go fingerless. But that's not going to work probably. Well, what do you recommend for as far as gloves go?
For me, I wear a glove on my left hand.
Okay.
I don't wear a glove on my right hand. What I found is after the first couple of holes, my hand actually warms up enough to where, unless it's just super bitter wind chill, in which case I'm probably not out playing.
Yeah.
I just keep the hand warmer in my pocket. So I'll throw and stick my hand back in my pocket real quick, and go from there. And that reminds me, I've got a really good tip that nobody told me for the first probably 8 or 9 years I played in the snow. And somebody finally told me this, and it just is a lifesaver. It has nothing to do with keeping you warm. In the wintertime, keep your discs out in the garage where they can get cold. Play with cold discs. Don't keep them inside.
Okay.
Because what happens is when you throw a warm disc out there, what will happen is it lands in the snow, then it melts the snow, and then the snow freezes to the disc.
Okay.
And then you've got all this clumpy stuff that you can't get off your disc. If you play with cold discs, the snow just falls right off the discs. So it keeps everything clean and dry and working real well in the wintertime.
That's a great tip, and it, not just for that, but also when it gets colder outside, you have a greater risk of breaking discs. And so if you're changing your discs, if your discs are heating up, and then you take them out and immediately make them cold, and then take them in and heat them up, you have much more chance of cracking a disc in half.
For sure. Now, do you?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I have a funny story about that. I used to work actually at Target when in my younger days. I actually worked there at nights, and I used to pull stock from the back. And me being the new guy, they made me pull freezer stock. Okay, so I wear glasses. And when you go to pull freezer stock, they have basically, I don't know what the freezer's set at as far as how cold it is. It's probably negative 1,000,000. That's what it feels like.
Is that an actual temperature setting on the thermostat?
Negative dangerous is what it is. But they hang coats and gloves for you before you go in. So I'd grab like 6, 7 coats and gloves, because you have to go in there and you have to do a number of pulls, like food pulls, to send them out to the floor. So I would go and put my coats on, put the gloves on, put 18 layers, and then I'd go in there. You could you'd have to maybe do, I don't know, 20 pulls, but you could only do 2 or 3 at a time before you get too cold. Wow. So I would walk in and I'd be wearing my glasses, and then I'd walk out and then I'd get warm, and then I'd walk in and be wearing my glasses, and you can see where this is going. So one day I walked in and then I walked out and my glasses just shattered on my face.
Oh, geez.
just fell off. So if that's what it can do to a plastic like that, you can imagine what it would do to your discs, especially when you're slamming them against trees. So that's an awesome tip. Keep them cool in the cooler weather. Another tip, actually, Chris Bowden sent in was to make sure you play with softer discs and like softer putters and things like that. They're obviously going to stiffen up. So that's true. I would use my Wizards and things like that. I have some super soft Wizards that I usually throw in the winter, and I kind of give the old KC Pro AVR a break in the winter. So other tricks for discs is we mentioned taping a ribbon to your dog when you let him go out in the in the snow so you can find
She
him.
doesn't like it when I throw her from a standstill, though, for some reason.
Does she like it when you throw her with a run-up?
Absolutely. Yeah, I can get probably 300, 350 feet out of that thing.
So this is a tip that, some of our players that have been playing for a while in the winter, I'm sure they're like, wow, that's old news. But a lot of times if you're playing in the snow and some of the deep snow that we've discussed, people have asked me a lot, hey, do you play in the snow? Sure I do. How do you find your discs? Well, the first step is not to play with any white discs. The second step is you can tape a ribbon. I don't know how long you pull it out for, maybe a couple feet long. And then you tape that to the top, and then when you throw it and it lands in the snow, now you have a little tracer around that you can follow it right on into the snow so that you can find your disc a little easier.
It does. It works great.
Yeah, I've done that maybe once, just because it's never been that big of a deal. I can always find my disc when it only goes 30 feet away from me. So, anyways, some other things to keep yourself nimble and your skills up are some indoor play. You were telling me before the show about some of the things that you do inside to kind of keep your skills up.
Yeah, it's I talk about doing things in the summertime or doing things in the wintertime that I really don't want to do in the summertime. And I got to be honest that, every time I head to the course in the summer, I have every intention of spending a decent amount of time at the practice basket. And as soon as I get out of the car, the course is just calling me. So I might put in a half-hearted effort at the practice basket
I feel
sometimes.
You on that.
But it's hard to not just jump out and start playing. So wintertime's a good time where if the only thing you can do is putt, then, it's a great opportunity to get those putts in. So I highly recommend, and I wrote a review of it on the blog, the Gateway Bullseye Basket. Dynamic Disc just came out with something called the Marksman, and both of those are smaller diameter baskets. They're made specifically for improving your putting. So last winter, I made a commitment that every morning I was going to get up and do anywhere between 100 and 250 putts on that bullseye basket. And I marked out spots in my living room at 10, 15, 20. And then the 25-foot mark was actually in my garage, putting through the door, across the kitchen, into the living room. So that was pretty fun.
That's kind of a finesse throw, too, anyway, just to get to go through the door.
Oh yeah, it was great, and I got to tell you that up until this year, I really had no confidence putting, and it did wonders for my putting. But I also put in 10 or 15,000 putts over the wintertime.
Oh man!
So when you do that, all of a sudden you starts almost being automatic for you. And I know some of my tournament performances this year didn't show that, but I definitely improved putting that way. So that's a great way to spend your time. And if you've got a stack of 10 putters, honestly, 100 putts doesn't take all that long.
No, it takes 10 rounds.
Yeah, it's not that bad at all. So if you can find, 15, 20 minutes a day to just knock those out. And actually, you know what? Not knock those out. Putt like you would on the course. Take your time. Don't just bang, bang, bang. That doesn't help. I did waste about a month doing that, and I realized that it wasn't helping me. Absolutely.
And I wrote an article, something about that a while back about, making everything count, and it stemmed from me at my backyard putting basket where I was throwing, missing. Why am I missing? Because I'm not correcting what I'm doing wrong. Mm-hmm. So there's no point in the practice putt if all I'm doing is programming myself to do it wrong. So that's a good point.
Now, can you get out in your backyard and putt in the wintertime? Is it you said only a couple, 3 inches of snow? That's not enough to keep you out of doing it.
Definitely be out in the backyard. Yeah.
Nice.
But some people are joining putting leagues. And again, that's something a little bit more than I do about. It's not that popular yet down in Virginia Beach. Can you describe to our listeners what the putting leagues are all about?
Sure. Basically, from our local club just started one last weekend, and I wasn't able to go to the first day. So I'm speaking just from hearsay and what I've heard that they're going to be doing. And also, I guess Charlotte has a huge putting league. That I've heard about that attracts 100 some odd players each weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, it's amazing. So, but what they'll do is they'll line up 2 baskets 30 feet apart, kind of horseshoe style, or bags if you play bags. It's kind of like that. And you've got 2 people on either end. It's a team of 2 people, and each person's got 2 putters. And from what I understand, you put both putters, You start, back and forth. And if you make 1, you get 1 point. If you make 2, you get 3 points. And you play to a set number. I believe you play to 21.
Okay.
As a team. And then you just kind of put back and forth. And then the winner goes on. It's kind of like a bracketed type of a setup where the winner goes on to play the winners and the losers go on to play the losers and so forth. And it's kind of like leagues that you'd play out on the course where you put in a couple bucks ahead of time and then the winner takes home, they divide up the winnings among the top few finishers. But it's a great way to really get together with friends and keep in touch with your disc golf friends. And I don't know about you, Pat. Are the people that that you only see on the disc golf course and you really don't see them if you're not playing?
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, so it's nice to keep up with those folks. It's interesting how that's the one common thing that brings you all together. So it's kind of cool. So that's definitely something you can do. From what I've seen, the most likely place to be able to run one is a brewery, like a local microbrewery. Mm-hmm. They're happy to have the people there and the extra folks there. It's nice because you've got adult beverages and food and regular beverages, and you've got the service right there. And they've usually got a big area in the back where they have storage for things and they'll usually have room for you. So almost every putting league I've heard of has actually been in a local brewery.
I'm imagining like a Fight Club scenario right now.
The first rule of putting league is we don't talk about putting.
We don't talk about putting league. So we just broke the first rule there.
I know. Somebody's knocking on my door. I wonder if that's a problem.
Are they really?
No. It's the putting league police coming to shut me down. But
that's awesome.
So that sounds like a lot of fun. I mean, do you have one in your area and you just haven't gone, or it just hasn't started up?
Not one that I'm aware of. As far as I know, on the East Coast, and I may get blasted for saying this, disc golf it's spreading west to east. It's not. I don't feel like it's as big a thing as it is all the way in California. And I have all the addresses from the team boxes to prove it. I mean, I'd say a good 60-70% of the boxes went to California and Washington, and mostly over in the west coast. And so I got a few that I sent here, which I was happy to see because the shipping was lower. And then, we had some that went off to the Netherlands, Finland, Australia, Germany. Man. So, but those guys are going to have a hard time finding each other, I think, to play for their.
So, what else I realized is that all those California players are listening to us right now, laughing at how we have to play in the snow.
That's true. I got the
damn you, California.
Yeah, and I got the coolest photo this week, and I posted it on Facebook, and it was 4 guys. They all had their minis and all had their bag tags, and we're all getting ready to play around. And I thought that's amazing. I
play with that guy, Scott McHale.
Oh, okay, awesome.
I play with him. He plays at my local course in leagues.
That's awesome. He's
so a great guy.
Yeah, so I'm thinking about that, and I'm thinking about the poor soul, the sole person I sent a team box to in Australia. Just hoping to go out there on the course and find somebody else who's got a box. You might want to travel to California if you want to lower your bag tag. Or hey, what if he had like number 4 or something, which is like one of the lower numbers you could get. Nobody can get it because it's in Australia. They'll have to fly out to Australia to lower their bag number. That's awesome. So, Tim, what are you throwing? What do you want to talk about throwing today?
What am I throwing? Well, I talked about it before. When this time of year comes around, one of the big things it picks up is wind, and I think I talked about the West Side World before. But my go-to disc when it's windy out is the Enforcer, and mostly because when I throw it, I can say the Enforcer.
It's always important.
It is. It makes me feel cool, kind of like Clint Eastwood.
Sure.
I asked the basket if it feels lucky.
Most of the dynamic discs, though, you can go out there and say pretty hardcore like that. They're all got titles like that.
Yes, absolutely. They throw the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Yeah, exactly.
That's original. Nobody's ever made that joke before.
No, not at all.
No. But I throw the Enforcer, and the cool thing about the Enforcer to me is normally I can't usually get down with super overstable discs. Like people throw, I've never really got along with Firebirds. I can't get along with the Stiletto,
Flicks,
the
Vipers,
giant Flicks, all that stuff. But it actually jumps out of my hand to the left before I even throw it. I don't get to throw the stupid thing. But for some reason,
it goes backwards. It's the boomerang.
Oh, it's crazy. It's just, I just don't, and everybody I know has got a Firebird in their bag, and I'm just like, I don't get it. I can't make that stupid disc work. But anyway, so when I started throwing Enforcers, it was really cool. I got one as part of a player's pack, and I thought, oh, here's another one I'm not going to be able to throw. And I threw it, and it actually, if you throw it flat, it actually stayed flat. It won't turn to the right. Doesn't really matter how much wind you throw it into. And then the cool thing is the 3 different plastic it comes in are 3 distinct different levels of stability. So if you need something super, super beefy, you throw the Lucid Enforcer, which is like the clear champion type plastic. And that thing is just super overstable. So if you've got, the winds that Zach is dealing with right now, 70 miles an hour or whatever he said they were.
Man.
You throw that into the 70-mile-an-hour wind.
I bet if he was able to be out there throwing, he would.
Yes.
You should have heard him talking about throwing in Japan. So, I think the weather was pretty similar to what he's dealing with now. At least that's how he described it back in the day. You can go back to episode 2 and listen to what his Japanese throwing stories. Anyways, go ahead.
Sure. No, I actually lived in Japan for about 1.5 years, and when the typhoons come, it gets super windy.
All right.
But you definitely throw the Enforcer in Japan. So, and then the Fusion Enforcer is a little bit straighter, so you can throw that. It goes a little bit farther with a little more glide. And then the Biofusion Enforcer, a lot of people who really like destroyers have told me that this is a lot like, I guess I haven't thrown too many destroyers, but I guess there's about 1 million different kinds and versions and stabilities of them. And there's one kind of super sweet spot that they're really sought after. And from what I understand, the Biofusion Enforcer is just like that hard to find destroyer. So still overstable, but actually will go kind of a surprisingly long way. So when the wind starts kicking up, I've got anywhere from 1 to 3 Enforcers. I might carry all 3 different plastics. I might just carry 1 or 2 depending on the wind outside, but that's what I'm throwing.
I'm throwing the most hated disc in disc golf, the INNOVA Groove. There's actually a Vine video of me making fun of myself for throwing the Groove. But the reason I started throwing the Groove is because everyone was giving them to me because they didn't like them. So I got real good at throwing them as they started to fill up my bag.
Wow, that's like you should do an episode on budget disc golf, and you could get an entire bag of grooves for free.
So I think exactly. I think there's 2 reasons that people don't like the Groove. The first is the Groove is almost exclusively sold in your Sports Authorities and your Dick's and all that kind of stuff. Do you have those in Chicago? I assume you do.
We do, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and so for some reason, INNOVA pushes that disc, I feel like, at those stores. And so people who are just getting into disc golf are the ones shopping at those stores. And they're buying the Groove because it has a speed 13, and it's not working for them. So I think that's one reason that people don't like it. The other reason is, and I may be oversimplifying this, I don't really agree with the numbers either. The speed 13, glide 6, turn neg 2, fade 2. Turning this disc over to a neg 2 it takes a hard throw. And it's like you always say, you have to be able to throw that speed 15 to actually get it to do all the other numbers. And I think that's why it doesn't work. People have also said some things about it not being consistent and things like that. But let me tell you, as with every disc, I don't always go off this information and say, well, this is exactly the disc that I need and it's going to do that exactly. I take mine out in field time, figure out what that disc does for me, Patrick McCormick, and throw it. And I've found a lot of different scenarios where the Groove does work for me, mainly when I like to flick a Groove. I think that was really the first driver that I really started to flick and feel like I was flicking it well on and I specifically flicked this on a dog leg right, because it's way more overstable than a Fade 2 for me. That probably means I'm not throwing it at that speed 13, but it works for me. And so I think that's the key in every disc. You know, if you don't like it at first, why don't you like it? Do you not like it because you're throwing it in the wrong scenario? Do you not like it because of is it your throw? Is it the disc? You know, I mean, what you have to ask, why isn't that particular disc working for you? I, fortunately, using the groove early enough when I came back to the disc golf game, found plenty of uses for it, especially flicking on those dogleg rights. I rarely ever, if ever, backhand a groove, but hey, that's what I'm throwing. That's what I like. So
that's great. You know what I'd like to know? We polled people earlier. I'd love to hear from folks. What's the disc in their bag that they carry that nobody else carries? And they're like, what's wrong with this? I like this disc.
Absolutely.
I'd love to know what people are carrying. Maybe it'd give us a couple ideas of things to try that we wouldn't have normally thought to try.
Sure. Tweet to us. What's the most obscure disc in your bag? You know, and that'd be interesting to find out. And also, hey, if you hate the groove, let us know. If you love the groove, let's have a groove battle. We'll have a groove dance-off. That's what it sounds like. So anyways, that's what I'm throwing. People make fun of it, but hey, it gets me birds, and that's what matters, right?
You got it. There's no spot on the scorecard for what disc you threw.
That's right. So we're getting close to the end of the pod here. Let's give some stuff away. Did you get my review over there, Tim?
I did.
Do you mind reading that for us since Zach couldn't make it?
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
I've got a big mustache to fill in.
Awesome.
But all right, so we've got a 5-star review, of course, and entitled "A Ticklish Review."
It was written for Zach.
Yes.
I just want him to know. I hope he listens this time.
This one goes out to Zach. Absolutely. By Michael, written on October 8th. We all know that once you've been bit by the disc golf bug, all you want is more disc golf. Well, on your never-ending search for more disc golf content, you found the crown jewel. This book will not only help your disc golf game, but help your mind and body.
Hey, it's a shout out to you too.
He did put. See what I did there?
Yeah.
We do see what you did there, Michael. I like it. I dig it. Thank you. Help your mind and body off the course as well. Thanks for the great read.
Awesome. So again, Michael, I'm assuming that you're listening to the podcast since you gave several shout outs in that pod in that review, hoping to get your mention on the pod. Basically, the way this works are a 5-star book review on Amazon, and I send you a signed copy of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf. So Michael, if you wrote that review, go ahead and email me, zendiscgolf at Gmail. I have to think about it. Gmail.com. I've only done this segment like 16 times now. So go ahead and send me an email and get in touch with me, and I'd love to send you a signed copy of Zen and the Art of Disc Golf. And if you've been listening, say in the past 6, 7, I don't know, 8 episodes, we've also been giving things away to people leaving 5-star reviews for the podcast. And this 5-star review comes from Ed McMuffin. Ed McMuffin's going to be getting a G-Line MD3 from Discmania, and man, I love these. I love every Discmania disc that they've sent me so far, mainly because they've been free. But no, they do exactly what they're supposed to do, and I particularly am a fan of the MD line there, and I really do like the G-Line. So you're getting something super special. So Ed McMuffin left us a 5-star review. Says the best disc in my bag, and he says, I've been playing for a while and wish this show had been there when I started. I've learned a lot by listening. I found the podcast by funding the Kickstarter. Thank you so much, Ed McMuffin. I search disc golf on there every day, and I'm very happy that I did. I've been listening to the episodes to and from work at the past few days, and my drive in traffic has been much less taxing. He added some pauses in there. So, at some points, I wish the drive was longer to listen to the entire episode. I find myself sitting in the car in front of my house till it's over. That's awesome.
Great.
The best podcasts make you do that. That's a testament. I really appreciate you saying that. Great show with great advice and plenty of shenanigans to make it entertaining and not dry. Great job. Can't wait to pick up the book. So awesome. Ed McMuffin,
Mr. McMuffin, you're a gentleman and a scholar.
Yes, exactly. Please send me an email at zendiscgolf@gmail.com, and I'm going to send you this pink G-Line MD3 for doing us a super big favor and leaving us a 5-star review. And so everyone, that's our show for today. Hopefully you got a few tidbits of information for the coming wintry season. I know Tim is just full of a plethora of information. I just try to pick him dry every episode. But if you need more from Tim, go to mindbodydisc.com and read his blog, and it is awesome. He has some great tips on a lot of the things that he's talked about today. He mentioned some of the things that he's reviewed, and he has a whole series on his gym time that you should check out. Also, go check out Zendiscgolf.com and follow us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, do all the social media stuff. I don't need to tell you to do it. If you like it, you're going to go ahead and do it anyway. So we missed Zach today. Big shout out to Zach. Big shout out to Chris. Hopefully you can join us on the next episode, and we'll have 4 of us to keep this the shenanigans going, as it were.
Sweet.
Anything left, Tim?
No, that's it, man. It was a great time.
Awesome. Thank you so much again for joining us, and most importantly, just throw.
It makes me feel cool, kind of like Clint Eastwood. I asked the basket if it feels lucky.